everyone. Welcome to Optimus Fantasy Football. It is week 12 of NFL action, and of course, it's Friday, and Mike, Reedy, the moneymaker, and I are here to help you set those week 12 DFS lineups. Mike, we're getting deeper into the season. Things are getting weirder and weirder. We've got injuries stacking up. We've got players returning this week. And to be honest, it's kind of overall a pretty ugly slate this week. Not a lot of games that you really want to watch.
Well, there's a couple like matchup plays with supposedly good wide receivers that you would normally want to play. Let's just say I'll say their names, Jerry Judy and DK Metcalf, but their quarterback situation sucks so bad you don't want to play them. Like you don't want to play them. It's last week was kind of weird. I actually had a good DFS week myself with my own plays off of our takes, of course, right? But it was still a weird week. I mean, Sean Tucker and Michael Wilson carried me into money, and the guys who should have carried me into money did nothing or close to nothing, right? It's just weird.
Right? Well, nobody could have seen Michael Wilson getting 18 targets from Jacoby Brissett.
I I was talking to my son, and we're going back and forth with it, and I said, I think he's going to go for 200 yards. Like he's got so many targets. I would love to see this kid get 200 yards and just nice story type of deal because
Oh, yeah, and we're
we'll
going
go
to talk
back to
about him.
third option soon enough, but nice story.
Yeah, it is a great story. And for now, he's the number 2 option, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. And we're going to talk about him a little bit later. But first, Mike, let's get into the QBs on this week 12 slate. We're going to start with Jalen Hurts. They're up against the Cowboys. They are the worst defense against fantasy quarterbacks this season. They're bad at a lot of stuff. We've picked on them all season long, and we're going to pick on them a lot today. But Jalen Hurts, he's had some down games. He's 6,600 on DraftKings, $9,000 on FanDuel. This is reflected in the salary. I like this play.
Divisional matchup. People will say week one he didn't play so good. He only had 152 yards passing against them. He also ran for 2 touchdowns against them, right?
Yep.
So he had a good fantasy day. The Cowboys defense is looking a little better the past couple of weeks since the trades they made before the trade deadline. They're not, I wouldn't call them good. I would call them better than they were. But I think the Eagles are going to come out and try to squash them this week. They're trying to get everything going before the playoffs start for them. They've only have 2 losses, and people don't like their current style of play, which is really pound, pound, pound the ball with their quarterback more than their running back. But I like him a lot this week. I think he's going to get some of the pass catchers a little more involved as well.
Yep. Well, and I love the salary. 2 weeks of 15 or below 15 fantasy point totals. Apparently, it's going to help you out getting a quarterback like Jalen Hurts. This is a good matchup for him. We've seen the frustration amongst Philly players, Philly fans, the Philly coaching staff with how this offense is operating. This is one of those matchups against a poor defense in your division, Mike, where players get right. So I really like this call. The second one, Drake Maye of the New England Patriots. We talk about him every week, it seems, and we should be. He is one of the best quarterbacks in football right now, up against the Bengals, who are giving up the second most points to quarterbacks. 6,900 on DraftKings, $8,400 on FanDuel. Mike, could some of this lower salary be because maybe they're assuming he's going to hand the ball off more to Trevion Henderson?
Yeah, the Bengals defense is bad everywhere. Every position does well against them. Ramondre Stevenson is back too, by the way, this week. So they have their 2-headed backfield back in place the way they want it. I still like Drake May a lot. He has multiple touchdowns in 8 of the last 9 games. Last week was the first time he didn't have multiple touchdowns in 8 straight games he did prior to that. No matter what you think, no matter what the matchup is, the guy seems to deliver, right? So if you want to pay up a little, he's not that cheap. He's worth it because he's just produces week in and week out.
Yeah, he's QB2 on the season. So
he's more steady than Josh Allen right now, which is scary.
Yes, he is.
Scary
well, it's
stuff.
scary. It's scary because they're 9-2. They're about to be 10-2 after this weekend. So,
I hope so.
Yeah, no, they will be. The next one up, Jacoby Brissett. We talked about him a little bit in the intro. They're up against the Jaguars this weekend, Mike. Fifth worst team against the quarterback. $5,300 on DraftKings, $7,300 on FanDuel. God, this is a place where I know he's going to be chalky because of the salary and because of the performances since he took over as the starter, but I don't care because
The,
I don't want to miss out on those points with the guy like Jacoby Brissett, at least in some of my lineups.
I think this is a lean into the chalk play as well, where even though it's going to be super chalky because he's priced low, and I mean, talk about a model of consistency. Every game he started for the Cardinals, he's had 2 touchdowns. People were keep making a big deal about he set a record, and it's Jacoby Brissett for most completions. Like, that's right. But look past that, right? Like, yeah, that's a big deal for him, right? And it's weird that
Mm-hmm.
he's the guy that has that record. 2 touchdowns every single game. He hasn't let us down yet. Every single game. That's like his floor and his ceiling right now. It's just
Mm-hmm.
and that's with
Yeah.
injuries on offense. They have who's starting at running back? I don't know. Marvin Harrison's out. Okay. We'll still go out and play. We might not win, but we'll play and we'll produce.
Yeah. I believe he's QB3 in points per game since he took over as the starter in week
Crazy.
6.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So he's someone I'm going to be all over. And especially like seriously $5,300 for a quarterback on DraftKings. I feel like I'm stealing candy from a baby or at
I
least an infant, Kyler Murray sized infant.
I have him as a moneymaker. We're talking about him here. I have him in my weekend waiver article, even though he's rostered in like 57% of leagues because he should be rostered everywhere. Like,
He
if you're
should be.
hurting at quarterback and you didn't add him, or you didn't add him so somebody else can't play him against you in season long, there's something wrong with you. You have to get him off the wire. And
Yes, you
you should
do.
play him in DFS this week.
Oh, yes, definitely. Jared Goff's the next one up, Mike. They're up against the Giants this weekend, giving up the third most points to quarterbacks. This should be an interesting matchup. I'm unsure which way it's going to go because I think there's a chance with Jameis Winston that New York could possibly stay in this game and force Detroit to throw the ball more. If that happens, I love Jared Goff, and that is a direction I'm leaning. My only fear here is that they're just not going to have to throw the ball, and this is going to turn into a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery pound fest.
Who we'll also talk about Gibbs too, right? And it could go
Mhm.
that way because the Giants aren't good against the run as well. So, but this is looking like, especially with Jameis playing, like one of those games where Goff comes out and throws 3 touchdowns. The matchup's right. He is not matchup proof. It's game script that usually does him in, by the way. They get up big and then they just run the ball, and he
Yep.
has nothing to do in the offense other than hand it off. They're a good football team, man, and that's what they do. I like him this week though too. I think he's a good play this week, especially with Winston on the other side.
Yeah, with Winston on the other side, it does lead me to believe they're going to have to throw a lot. Just because this Giants team has enough weapons to make this game interesting, and
Well,
we've seen Detroit.
Slayton's playing too, so they're
Mhm.
going to have at least competent wide receivers out there, more than one, right? As well.
Right. Yeah. Not forcing Jalen Hyde into service, thank God.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. They're playing the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend, giving up the 8th most points to fantasy quarterbacks. He is priced at $5,700 on DraftKings, Mike, $7,700 on FanDuel.
This guy's been kind of a roller coaster for the season, up and down,
Yeah.
and and I think he's a very talented guy. We've talked about him a lot on this show, by the way. He was down last week, which means he should be up this week, and the matchup's right. So, he's a great play this week if you want to pay for Caleb. He's not priced super high. He's kind of middle of the road kind of guy. The matchup's really good, and we're going up this week, I think.
Yeah, I do too. I could see him slotting in somewhere between QB 10 and QB 8 in this matchup, is where I've got him ranked in my rankings on optimusfantasy.com, of course. So, yeah, I like this play a lot, Mike. Caleb Williams, he has been up and down, but also he's a rookie, second year quarterback in a brand new system in his second year. And this is a long-term play for Chicago. So I think they came into the season knowing that they weren't going to contend for a Super Bowl, but they needed Caleb Williams to get comfortable in this offense. And every week he gets more and more comfortable in it.
They very well may win that division, though, even though
They
they're not
could.
a Super Bowl contender. They might.
Yeah.
He's a talented kid, and
Yep.
he looks light years above where he did as a rookie play-wise. So,
Yes, he does. Yeah. All right, Mike, let's move on to the running back position. This is where it gets a little interesting. The first one we're going to talk about is Trevion Henderson. They're up against the Bengals, who, as we discussed, awful defense all around. They are giving up the most points to fantasy running backs right now. $6,700 on DraftKings, $7,500 on FanDuel for Henderson. You mentioned earlier, Ramondre Stevenson is back. Before Ramondre was out, I would have been concerned, even in this matchup, about rolling out Henderson. We've talked about it at length, what Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels like to do with running backs. That seems to have shifted, though. In the absence of Ramondre Stevenson, how can you not give him at least a semi-full workload?
so and against this defense, right? So, in all 11 games this season, so every single game they've played, the Bengals have given up double-digit fantasy points to at least one running back, and many times to two running backs, which is amazing because with Flacco there, they're slinging the ball around. You would think the other team has to sling the ball around too to, you know, play video game football is what it looks like half the time. But running, they're very susceptible against the run. Um, I'm not against playing Ramondre either, by the way. I kind of like both of those guys this week, and both of them can catch the ball out of the backfield as well. So this is, I think,
Yeah,
Henderson's a really good play. I actually like him more with Ramondre there because I think from his history, he's better as like a secondary back because he's so goddamn explosive. And
sure,
he just seems to not wear down that way.
sure.
I like this
Well,
play.
I like it a lot. He's had 5 touchdowns over the last 2 games, Mike,
Yep.
and I think he could very well get a couple. If you want to play Ramondre, he has 5,200 on DraftKings, which is not bad at all.
No.
I don't know.
Solid
I
play this week.
There's a world in which I would probably start both. Now let's move on to Jahmyr Gibbs. We teased him a little bit earlier. Detroit Lions are up against the Giants, giving up the third most points to running backs. Gibbs is priced like it though, 8,300 on DraftKings, Mike, $9,100 on FanDuel.
He should be. He has over 140 total yards in each of his last 2 games. He's just tearing it up right now. And now he has probably an easier matchup than he had either one of those times. So, even if they're slinging the ball around, he does it both running and catching, and, I really like Gibbs a lot this week if you wanna pay up for him. I'm
Yep.
not, by the way, paying up other places, but I like him a lot if you wanted to pay up for him.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to pay up for him either. But I wouldn't argue against it, and I wouldn't tell you it was a bad play if you decided to. How do you feel about Monty this week? With this defense, we could see him get some work too. He's
Well,
5,300 on DraftKings.
he has a chance to pop this week. I know this season's been kinda down for him as far as, fantasy wise has gone, and it's because Gibbs has just been so good, it's not funny. But this is a defense where we might see a lot of Monty against them too. If they get up, they might just rumble through them with both running backs and put them away.
Yeah. Oh, I could absolutely see that. I'll probably throw Monty in some lineups this weekend as well. And that price, 5,300, is it's
Yeah.
worth the risk, right? Um, Kenneth Walker, he's right around that same price. They're up against the Titans this weekend, the fifth worst defense against fantasy running backs. 5,400 on DraftKings, Mike, $7,200 on FanDuel. I don't trust Kenneth Walker much. This isn't a bad matchup, and I love the price.
So this is kind of like a bunch of factors here for me with him. The matchup's good. The price tag's good because it's Tennessee, right? That's another team
Yep.
we pick on often. Um, Last week he had, 111 total yards and a touchdown, right? And the coach is talking about how he deserves to touch the ball more than Charbs. So it could just be coach speak, but I don't think it is. I think they're going to roll out Walker. He's probably the more talented of the two backs, anyways. Um, I think we're going to see a lot of them this week. Probably looking at 20 touches again.
I could see that. I'm surprised you tossed a probably in there,
What, on the
though.
20?
No, on the probably a better back than Charbonnet. He definitely is.
There's people who want to debate that. I don't know why. He's a much more talented guy.
No, I
Different
don't get
types
it
of
either.
players, but yeah.
Yep. All right, another talented player who's been disappointing us, Mike, a lot, but we're going to roll with him this week. I'm definitely playing him in this matchup. Saquon Barkley up against the Cowboys, seventh worst defense against the running back position in fantasy. He's a little pricey, 7,500 on DraftKings, 9,000 on FanDuel. But like we discussed earlier, this is a get right game for this offense. They need Saquon Barkley to get right if they're going to have any chance of marching through the playoffs. This is a week to get him rolling.
And I think they want to squash the division rival, right? And he's one of the
Yep.
most talented guys in that offense. I mean, him, AJ Brown, and Jalen Hurts are head and shoulders the most talented guys there. I like him a lot this week as well. Again, I don't know, you know, we'll see what happens, right? Saquon's let me down. I have him in some redraft leagues, and he's let me down in a couple of spots. Could be because one of the rules I didn't follow that I have in the draft with him, because I drafted him later than I expected, was if somebody has, like, over 350 touches or something like that, I kind of avoid them usually in redraft. And he looks like that touch count might have made him wear down a little bit this season, but they've also limited his touches in a lot of games. So I think they're going to start ramping up for the playoffs, as we talked about, and now is the time to do that for them in week 12.
Yeah, they're absolutely going to have to. And I mean, $7,500. It's not the
Right.
$8,300 you'd be paying for Jahmyr Gibbs, so it's not atrocious. All right, Mike, let's move on to the wide receiver position. And I want to remind everyone, as we do, if you've got more questions about this DFS slate, about your season-long redraft leagues, or about your dynasty leagues, or betting for that matter this weekend, head on over to our Discord channel. The link is in the show description. All right, Mike, the first one we're going to talk about, we teased him a little bit earlier, Romo Dunze of the Chicago Bears. They're up against the Steelers this weekend. $6,100 on DraftKings, $6,900 on FanDuel, Mike. I'm going to guess this price is because last week, 6 targets, 2 catches. He had a good game against the Giants, but against Cincinnati, 3 targets, not a single catch. It seems to have devalued him a little bit in this format, but against the Steelers, this is a good matchup for the second year wide receiver.
Well, in the past 5 games, a wide receivers had either over 100 yards or a touchdown against them. Every game, one guy does that, right? And, maybe it's DJ Moore. Roma Duns is clearly the better player this year. He's the number one guy in the passing offense here. He seems to go the way that Caleb goes, other than Caleb's huge, massive game where Odunze dropped the touchdown pass. And if he didn't drop that, no one would have been talking about how bad the game was for him. They would have been happy he had the touchdown and 10 fantasy points or whatever and not cried. Uh, this is a good game for him. I'm kind. I don't sound it, but I'm actually kind of excited about Romo Duns this week. I have him on quite a few of my redraft leagues. Like, he's one of my highest drafted players this year. I'm very high on him this week. I really like this matchup a lot. Steelers not so good against the.
There's this perception of the old steel curtain defenses where you just didn't throw against them. You had really good cornerbacks,
The,
but this defense hasn't been that in a while, right?
the
You've
shower
got
curtain. Yeah.
Yeah, they're more like a shower curtain. Exactly. I like Odunze this week. You get these games, you're going to get them with any wide receiver where they see some targets, it just doesn't work out. The game script dictates they're not going to see a ton of volume. This will not be one of those. And this is a Steelers offense. It looks like Aaron Rodgers is going to play, Mike. I think they can push this Chicago team and force them to throw the ball more this week.
I hope so. That's what we like for fantasy. Shootouts,
Yep.
baby. Give
It
us all
is.
the
It
shares
is.
you can.
Speaking of shootouts, we're going to move over to Michael Wilson of the Arizona Cardinals, the wonderkind of Week 11. They're up against the Jaguars, who are giving up the 13th most fantasy points against wide receivers. So this is more of a middle of the road, not a bottom 10 worst against the position. But like we talked about earlier, it doesn't matter. No Marvin Harrison Jr. this weekend. His other favorite target, Zay Jones, hasn't been around in a minute. They're going to throw the ball. Amari DeMercado's out. So you're basically at Bam Knight at running back this week.
He's dinged
Michael
up too.
Wilson's,
Yeah.
yeah, and he's dinged up too. It's not going to be 18 targets, but well within reason to see 10 to 12 go Michael Wilson's way this week and a touchdown.
That was 32% target share last week that Michael
Mm-hmm.
Wilson had too in that game with the 18 targets, 185 yards. The Jaguars, they're good against the run. They're not so good against the pass. Their defense actually is a fairly decent real life defense, by
Yeah.
the way, but their pass funnel, um, you know, I like Wilson a lot. I know he's going to be chalky with Brissett in a stack, and I don't care. I played this stack last week too with a double stack actually, but I'm playing the same double stack this week.
Yeah, I have no issue with stacking these guys. And yes, they're going to be chalky, but like I was saying with Brissett, this is the kind of chalk I want to be in on because I don't want to miss out on these points. I'll pivot in other places in a lot of lineups here. One of those pivots might be Jackson Smith and Jigba in Seattle up against the Titans, who give up the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers. The reason I like him and the reason I'm willing to pay up, he's $9,000 on DraftKings and $9,800 on FanDuel. Seattle hasn't had to throw the ball much the last couple of weeks. I feel like that's going to change this week, at least early on in this game. And JSN, no matter what, is going to get his. He's the number one wide receiver in football. This is a great matchup. He's worth the price for me this week.
All right, I haven't said this in a while, right? All the way up, Jackson Smith and the Jigba.
Yep.
You're paying all the way up. He's the highest priced wide receiver on both apps, DraftKings and FanDuel. Titans give up the 8th most fantasy points to wide receivers. This guy is the best fantasy wide receiver this season to have. I know I have him in a lot of season long. If you're gonna pay up at wide receiver, he's the guy to do it with this week. Matchups right. They're probably going to get up early and then squash him with Kenneth Walker late.
Yep. Look, even last week against the Rams, 12 targets.
Yeah.
Darnold had a down game. He still had 12 targets. He is currently at 97 targets on the season. He's only 27 catches shy of 100, Mike. We're in week 12.
I know. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It's
And
awesome
it
too.
is. It's awesome, and there's no reason to think that volume is going to change for him, and it doesn't really matter with the matchup. The next one up, Mike, is Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs, coming off of a very, very thrilling defeat for me at the hands of the Denver Broncos, of course. This week, though, they are up against the Colts, who are giving up the 9th most points to wide receivers. $7,700 on DraftKings. He's $8,100 on FanDuel. As far as I'm concerned, he's the only wide receiver in this offense that you should even think about, look at, consider. And he's a smash play in DFS for me every single week.
He out of his games back, I think he has 1 week he wasn't a top 10 wide receiver, right? Every other week he's been a top 10 guy. The matchups right too this week, and with someone like Rashee Rice, he seems that he's priced high, but he's going to be one of the highest priced guys on the slate every week soon because he's going to crank out another top 10 performance this week. The Colts defense is a good real life defense, but their offense is the best offense. So everyone has to pass to stay in the game against them. And I mean, Mahomes is going to pass Rashee Rice. That's what happens.
And fortunately for, I guess, Kansas City, they can't run the ball anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Unless it's Patrick
Pacheco's
Mahomes.
out again. Yeah, Pacheco's out
Yep.
again. I mean, Hunt will get you that 1 yard touchdown, but they really don't run the ball well at all.
Nope. So this should be a good game for Rice, Mike. I like this call. The last one, speaking of the revenge narrative and going back to the Cowboys defense because they give up the most points to fantasy wide receivers, A.J. Brown of the Philadelphia Eagles, $5,900 on DraftKings. He is $7,900 on FanDuel. A.J. Brown has become a story for reasons he probably did not want to be a story this season. He's currently wide receiver 36 in PPR, not where we were drafting him at all. But this matchup against Dallas, for the 3rd time on this show, this is a get-right game for Philly's offense.
He was absolutely atrocious in week 1 against this Dallas team with 1 target, 1 reception, 8 yards. It was just the game scripted it completely out. He got a little squeaky before last week right, saying drop me if you have me on your fantasy team, and he saw 11 targets. He only had 7 receptions for 49 yards. That volume of targets, it's not stopping this week. This is a week where AJ Brown should be happy after the weekends. At least that's how I'm looking at it. And one of the things we've talked about before is we shouldn't be basing all of our plays off of what the guy did last week in an easy matchup. We should be basing our plays off what we expect them to do against whoever they're playing this week. And the Cowboys are a team you can throw on
Yep.
relentlessly.
And they're going to do it, and they should do it. They've got to get this part of their offense working. And yeah, this is a good week for Eagles players. I would even, this is going to sound crazy, but I
Devonta,
would, no, even crazier. Jalen Rager. Sorry, Jahan Dotson.
Jahan Dotson.
I maybe in 1 or 2 lineups, I might pop him in just to see if he scores a touchdown.
I want to see them sling it a little. This is the week they should do it.
Yep, exactly. Speaking of slinging it, we're going to move on to the other position that gets a lot of passes, or at least we hope these guys we're talking about do, because if
Couple of
they
them do.
don't, bad recommendations, but we think they're good. First one we're going to start with is Hunter Henry of the New England Patriots. They're up against the Bengals this week, Mike, and this is going to sound familiar. Give the most points to fantasy tight ends. He is $3,900 on DraftKings, $5,300 on FanDuel. I'm not an advocate of Henry as we head into the fantasy playoffs and season long,
Neither
but
am I.
this is a phenomenal matchup. Might be the last time you'll be rostering Hunter Henry in any format, but this is a great matchup.
This is the week to play him, and he's priced nice, right? Like the 3,900 on DraftKings, 5,300 on FanDuel. The matchup's right. The Patriots really spread the ball around, and Keyshawn Butte is going to be back this week too, right? But that's going to hurt wide receivers more than it's going to hurt Hunter Henry. This is just a place where you can really take advantage of the Bengals, and teams have. So as we've said before, if we can recognize this, coaching staffs recognize this and game plan for these types of things. Hunter Henry is a good tight end. It's just the style is to spread the ball around, which is good for real football.
Yep.
This is a week Hunter Henry is going to boom. Yeah.
Yep. No, I love him for a boom game this week. Another one I like for a boom game, Trey McBride. They're up against the
Every week.
Jaguars, who are the second worst defense against tight ends. The one place that they are actually below average here as a defense. McBride's a little expensive. It's reflected here, $6,800 on DraftKings, $8,500 on FanDuel. But you know what I want? I want the wide receiver one for Jacoby Brissett this week.
I mentioned how I double stacked. I'm double stacking again this week with some of these guys, and I'm even going to do it. I have a couple of like home DFS leagues. One's the millionaires thing with Scott Simpson and all fantasy analysts, and other ones with local guys that are really good. And I'm double stacking these guys, and I don't care if they're chalky this week. I think this is a lean into the chalk and filling around it type of week for these guys, because the passing tree is 3 branches. It's these 2 guys and Dortch. So it's Wilson, McBride, and then Dortch. And Dortch is what, 5 or 6 targets. These other guys are
Maybe.
10 target guys this week. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. No, I love the McBride play this week. I also oddly really like Travis Kelce this week against the Colts.
I love him this week against the Colts.
Well, okay, he's $5,000 on DraftKings, $6,000 on FanDuel. The Colts right now are giving up the 4th most points to the position. This is a game where Kansas City really needs to win this, because if they go to 5-6, you can pretty much forget about having any shot at the division, and getting into the playoffs for them gets really hairy. And where they saw success last week against Denver was 13 targets to Travis Kelce.
Well, the matchups, right, as we said, you can and you have to pass on the Colts to stay in the game. And they're a good real life defense, but for fantasy purposes, right, you have to. They're susceptible to tight ends. Kelce has 3 straight games with double-digit fantasy points. He started kind of slow this season, but he seems to be picking up momentum. He also has double-digit fantasy points in 5 of the last 6 games. His price point is nice for Kelsey and a Travis Kelsey type player. I'm actually
Yeah.
flexing him in DFS in a few places already with where I have McBride as the tight end because I expect Travis Kelsey to have such a good week against the Colts this week. Again, another passing tree that's just two guys. It's Rashee Rice and Travis Kelsey. It's really focused volume on those two pass catchers. And I love that for fantasy, right? We want less
Mm-hmm.
branches on the tree.
Well, I think he's an 8 to 10 target guy this week. I think he approaches 100 yards receiving again, and I think he gets a touchdown. He could be the tight end 1 on the week. He's creeped his way
Oh,
up to tight end 3 overall. So he's been playing much better as of late. And you love to see that the salary's not catching up with that quite yet. The last one we're going to talk about, I'm a little iffy on this one, Mike. I was going to pass it up as I'm looking at it. I can't do it. Cole Kmet of the Chicago Bears are up against the Steelers this weekend. 6th most fantasy points allowed to the tight end. Here's why I really want to talk about him. $2,500 on DraftKings, $4,800 on FanDuel, next to nothing. And I understand that Caleb Williams is starting to favor Colston Loveland a little bit more. I get that. That's
but
fine.
is he?
But is he?
That's the narrative. Actually, Komet had more targets the last game, more catches than Loveland. I wrote this up in a waiver wire article today about Loveland. Actually, I included both of them. Um,
Sure.
the matchup's nice for tight ends. They should both be okay. And with the price you have here, if he has another 5 catch, 45-yard game on DraftKings, that's 9.5 points, 10 points. That's what you want, right? Out of that price point,
Mm-hmm.
that's beautiful.
Yep. He wouldn't be a bad flex if you want to do the stack with McBride, Wilson, and Brissett either, because then you could go a little bit higher up somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I love this one.
Yeah, get
All right, Mike.
Jackson the Jigma in there, right? If you pay low enough in a
Ooh.
few spots. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that's a beautiful lineup if you can pull it off. I love that. Now let's move on to the part no one wants to do: the defense special teams units for these teams. You gotta start one, so we've got a few you should look at here. First one is the Seattle Seahawks. We've talked a lot about this Titans defense being bad. Their offense is equally atrocious. Cam Ward's been, I mean, he looks like a 7th-round quarterback or worse. Brock Purdy. I'd take Brock Purdy over Cam Ward in a heartbeat if we had to redraft, right? At this point. So $4,000 on DraftKings, $5,000 on FanDuel, Mike. Uh, matchups when it comes to these defenses.
And the Titans have been a little better, right? They're not at averaging 14 fantasy points a game against them anymore. They dropped to 11, and it's because they had Indy and LA only do like 5 and 7 points. But last week Houston got 9 against them, and Houston's a great fantasy defense, by the way. I like them because they're a good real life defense and a great matchup, right?
Yep.
And we know the Titans are gonna let you get sacks. They're gonna turn the ball over. And I mean, who's healthy out of their wide receiver group right now? I think it's DK and
Is DK's iffy. Aomanor's hurt.
yeah,
Calvin
every
Ridley's out.
their top two guys are completely out. You're talking about, their third option and maybe their fourth and fifth option. So they're gonna struggle. Uh, they're gonna struggle. And I like this. I like this if you want to pay up a bit at defense. I like it.
Yep, I do too. The next one, the Las Vegas Raiders gag me here. But look, to be fair, I wrote them up in our waiver wire article this week as a defense to stream. They're playing
They
the
are.
Browns. The Browns give up the second most points to fantasy defenses. You can get them for $3,500 on DraftKings, $3,700 on FanDuel. But Shadur Sanders is starting. He went 4 for 14 in his limited time last week. He was doing the thing that video gamers do when they're new to like Madden or college football. And when there's pressure in the pocket, they just run backwards to try and get away from him. Like, well, if I just weave around, these defensive bots will never catch me. And that's what he looked like. I think there's going to be some improvement. He's had a full week with the first team this week to get ready, but I don't think there's going to be that much. And I would never advocate firing up the Vegas defense except for in this one situation.
I called him the Bronny James of the NFL on X.
Mm-hmm.
I really think he is. He's the kind of guy he could get a bunch of minutes based off his name. He got drafted just based off his name. He's, you know, not gonna produce well. I don't care if there's improvement from last week with a full week of playing as the starter and getting the starters reps. I just don't see it. Somebody said, he'd really be good if he could get better technically, had a stronger arm, was maybe a little bit taller and slightly faster. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. That's Shedeur Sanders. Is he a better athlete than I've ever been? Yes. Was he a fairly good college quarterback? Yeah, he had a lot of talent around him too. But he was. That doesn't mean you're an NFL player, right? Like
Nope.
that's all.
Look,
He's getting his cup of coffee. I wish him the best. It's going to be hard for
yep.
him. Uh, the Raiders defense is a great play this week. That's going to be very chalky too, by the way, because Shador looked so horrible last week. Just
Look,
horrible.
if the NFL was more like the mid-Atlantic conference, Shedeur Sanders would be a freaking star, but this is the NFL, and I love the Vegas defense in this matchup this week. The last one we're going to talk about, this is another what pick, but it's the New Orleans Saints up against the Atlanta Falcons and Kirk Money Cousins, $2,500 on DraftKings, $3,200 on FanDuel. And Mike, I solemnly swear to you that I will never call him Kirk Money Cousins on this show ever again.
Well, Kirk Cousins looks like an old guy that probably shouldn't be playing in the NFL anymore, and that's why he's a backup, and he's probably good
Mm-hmm.
at helping to mentor, the younger guy that's now in front of him. And he's a guy I think was a really good quarterback. Um, he just some quarterbacks we saw it with like even Peyton Manning, they fall off a cliff at one point, right? And their arm just can't produce the power it had, and he looks like that now. The downside with the Saints defense is Falcons could just game script run nonstop with their two really good
Yep.
running backs and short passes into the flat with their two running backs. Um, the upside is he's still going to turn the ball over and take some sacks probably. He doesn't move all that well anymore, and his arm strength is not very good.
Yeah.
So if you want a sneaky, really low price play, the Saints are a good sneaky low price play.
Yeah, it's not without its risk, but it's worth it. The risk versus reward. I mean, some of the really good defenses this weekend, you could end up with 2 points out of.
The
This is
the
one of the hardest positions to start.
the model I've heard other guys in the industry talk about with DFS, you want to get 3 times in points what the amount is you're paying for, right? So what are we looking at here? And I'm sorry, I moved away from it, but
So it'd be $7,500 or 75 points,
yeah,
7.5 points for
if
the Saints.
if if
So,
you can hit 7 or 8 points with this defense and you paid up elsewhere and smashed it, you're winning, right? You're gonna
yep.
you win some money. It's just a good spot to be in.
Yep. Well, and that's the spot we're going to leave you guys with, folks. We are done here for this wonderful Friday. I want to thank everyone who is watching, who has watched, and who will watch in the future, of course. As we approach Thanksgiving, folks, we will be here next weekend with our DFS plays. So look for that, but we will be on a limited schedule for the rest of the channel. Please make sure if you've got more questions, check out our Discord channel. The link is in the show description down below. And head on over to tools.optimusfantasy.com and check out everything that we've got going on over there. We've got a lot of awesome tools, and it's only getting better. Get a 2-week free trial with the code ThanksOptimus.
Happy
All
Thanksgiving,
right, Mike.
folks.
Yep. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Thanks for tuning in again. For Mike Reedy, I'm Nate Polvogt, and we'll see you next week.